Let me know if that worked for you, Haley. Okay. So welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. I'm actually trying something new. I've never done an immersive presentation. Usually I do not use slides. I have just a few. I don't want to put too many PowerPoints up in front of you, but I thought this was a kind of I saw this in a different webinar. I thought this was a kind of um, a cool aspect of how you can be kind of immersive inside of a presentation. So I thought I'd try it out for a few slides, but I'm really, really excited that you are all here. So let's, two things. If you're just joining, if you'd be so kind to answer the 2-question poll that I launched, it would really help me understand who's joining and what is on your mind. And as we start to talk, if you have specific questions, please post them in the Q&A function of the on the bottom of the screen, and that way I'll know to look there for your specific questions. But if you also want to look in the chat, hey Haley, I do see that you got in there. Awesome. So Haley will be posting all kinds of links throughout the evening in terms of access to free resources, information that I'll be talking about. If you want to learn more about our services, our book, all kinds of resources that you'd want to access. So make sure you also double check the chat for information there as well. All right. So this process was supposed to be easy, right? We send our kids to college, or if you're a college student, you go to college and you embark in this process, and everyone involved thinks that it shouldn't be that hard. This is what they committed on the campus tour, right? That you go to school, you come out with a degree, and then you have a job. And it turns out it's more challenging than we ever all expected. I think as parents, we are hoping that the school will kind of take care of certain things for us. Students, we're hoping that things will happen as well. And, employers, they also expect students and people will come out and really be ready to manage this process. But it's not necessarily happening the way we thought. So, what do we do about this? And here's some of the statistics of what's going on. 2 million college students graduate each May. About 87% think they are ready for the workforce, but only barely half of hiring managers agree with that. And the jobless rate for new college grads has actually surpassed that of all workers every month, even since January of 21. We've seen that a lot of millennials and Gen Zers who moved back home during the pandemic, they're still there. And we have seen that 2024 has just turned into one of the most challenging job markets for a whole host of reasons. So what do we do about this, right? We have students who are struggling, they're overwhelmed, they feel stuck or very intimidated by the process. Many of them were impacted by the pandemic, did not have a typical college trajectory of what they normally would go through. A lot of us as parents, I will speak for myself, I'll tell you more about my story in a moment, but we thought the university would handle this. Or sometimes we realize I haven't looked for a job in 20 plus years. How am I going to help my young adult through this process? And the other piece is that, employers are getting picky. They don't want to babysit. They don't want to have to handhold. So we have this problem and affecting everybody in the search process. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Beth Hendler-Grunt, and I am the CEO and founder of Next Great Step. And our sole focus is to help college students and recent grads land the internship or the first job after college. And I'm really proud to say that we've been doing this almost 10 years. We're going on year 10 in 2025. We have helped thousands of students and grads be successful on launching. And I started this business because I saw that there was this challenge where, at the time my kids were still younger, but all my friends would say, I don't get it. My kid went to a great school and they have great grades and they can't get a job. And likewise, I was working in the corporate world doing consulting, and executives would say, I'd love to bring on someone who's a young adult, but they don't fully understand the scope of the problems that we have. And I don't know if I have the time to teach them or give them the nurturing that they need. So that is how we kind of forged Next Great Step. And as we built this program, it's really a simple, structured, step-by-step approach that enables clients to achieve two things. One, to have real clarity on what they want to do for their life, regardless of what they studied. And two, once they figure that out, how can they navigate the search in such a way where they are the ones who are chosen? They know how to articulate their value. They feel confident in the process and they have success in getting the job that they desire. And I am also the parent of a college senior and a third year grad student. So I am living this real time. I get it. Just because mom does this for a living doesn't mean my kids want to listen to me either. So I really do understand the challenges that parents face. I do also want to share that I am an Amazon #1 best-selling author of the book called The Next Great Step. Let's see if I can get it into the screen here. Haley's going to link it. It is The Next Great Step, The Parent's Guide to Launching Your New Grad into a Career. And I launched it actually 2 years ago this week. And really has been so well received because I wanted to put a tool in the hands, especially in parents' hands, about if you want to navigate this with your young adult, how do you do this? And by the way, it's also meant to be handed to your young adult as well, so they can understand the process of how to go about it. So that's just a little bit about me for those who are new joining. So let's talk about our agenda and what we are going to cover this evening. I'm going to kind of give you a summary of like what's happening from the parent perspective, the student perspective, and what employers are really thinking right now and what they're looking for with young adults. I will then give you a summary of the hiring trends. What is happening right now in this market? September 2024, I've kind of curated all of the news of what's going on so I can give you some better insight. And then I'll talk about some actionable tips. But the priority in this session is really to be here to answer your questions. That's why I do these open office hours. They're so well received and people really look forward to it because I know you have a lot on your mind. I know you have a lot of questions. So my goal is to really leave plenty of time to answer them, do my best that I can to answer them this evening. And like I said, as I am speaking, please put your questions in the chat. Like I said, Haley is posting all kinds of resources. Sorry, post your questions in the Q&A and in the chat. There's all types of resources that we are providing you as well. All right. So let's talk about a little bit about what's happening and especially from the perspective of a parent and a student, and then also what an employer, as parents, and I kind of mentioned this a little bit before, this process is not what we expected and not what sometimes we feel was even promised to us on the campus tour, right? We go and we help our kids get into college, and there's so much energy being put into that. And I understand, but there's also an expectation that maybe the university would provide certain services and that would help our student be successful in getting that job. And it's not always happening the way we thought. I think we also think our kids are going to use all the resources that are on campus and, even like career services, career fairs. But the truth is that on average, only 4 in 10 kids actually go to career services, which is not the numbers that we normally want. I think also as parents, there's an expectation that life skills like networking will be taught as well, or learning how to navigate this process. But it's also not part of the curriculum and very often not mandated. It's very much optional in some ways. The other thought I hear from a lot of parents is that, you know what, well, I have connections or I'm in the corporate world. I'm going to make a connection for my kid and I'm sure it'll work out. And I get this a lot. And by the way, I'm all about making introductions. But I also hear a lot of feedback from parents that sometimes they feel like their kid kind of blows it, where they maybe took it too casually or they weren't serious about it, or they thought a friend of mom and dad's would just help them get a job. And I think as we all start to realize when somebody's having to think about, money and their reputation, and they're going to put their neck on the line for somebody, they want to make sure that a candidate is really the best possible candidate. And the other thing that parents say to me is this idea of, I wish I knew. I wish I knew how early the process starts, or I wish I knew that, helping talking to professors or going to a career fair, even early in the college experience, can really start to set them up later down the road. But I assure you, and everyone asks me, like, is it too late? It's not too late. It's never too late. But I know that there's sometimes these feelings of like, wow, I wish I started this sooner. I wish I encouraged them sooner. So I get it. I hear you. We can all beat ourselves up about it, but we're all doing the best we can. So let's talk about it from a student or grad perspective. A lot of students and grads, they start off confident. They are told and they feel like, you know what? I have a good major, or I was told I have the right major to find the right jobs, or my, skill set's going to be in demand. And they start off the process feeling, you know what? I don't feel so overwhelmed. I feel like I can manage this. So very often students will either aim for an internship or that first job and they apply online. And very often they start to see, wow, this is harder than I thought, or maybe it's a black hole, or maybe even if I get a response initially, then somebody ghosts me. So they're just like, wow, this is a little bit more difficult than anticipated. So then they start to think, well, maybe it's a numbers game. Maybe more is better. Maybe I should apply to more jobs, and that's how I'll find it. Sometimes that works, sometimes it does not. The other piece we see with students and grads is this idea of like, well, let me just fix my resume. If I fix my resume, or if I just put in all the right keywords to trick the tracking systems or AI, that's how I'm going to be found. And they work on it or had multiple iterations of resumes, but that doesn't always seem to yield the result that they're looking for. And sometimes they start to think, well, what am I doing? Like, do I even have the right qualifications? Do I even want to pursue a job in the field that I studied, and start to question everything? Like, am I good enough? Am I smart enough? And we cannot ignore the fact that over 40% of young adults have reported feeling anxiety or depression. I mean, we have so many students that are still dealing with the consequences of the pandemic and how that impacted their, college experience and their career. So very often they tell me that they're scared, they're afraid, they're stuck, and they're just not sure how to move forward. And then we have employers. Employers tell me that, we know that their numbers are different. I've been talking to employers for this entire time. And if I think about it, 2 years ago in 2022, there were two jobs for every candidate. Now there are two applicants for every job. So it is definitely more competitive. Employers are struggling to find the right talent and the right skills. And as I mentioned earlier, they don't necessarily want to, babysit. But I think more of the important statement that I hear from them a lot is a lot of candidates will say to an employer, I really want this job because I think it's going to be great for me. And that might be the case, but employers don't want to hear that it's great for you. They want to hear that it's great for them. They want to understand, how are you going to help them meet their goals, make more money, improve their customer service, whatever, make more widgets, whatever that is. They really want you putting yourself in their shoes, and they want to see more of that. They also do want to see real world experiences. They want to see internships, or even if it's a part-time job or being in a club or taking on a leadership role in a group, but they want you to explain that that's how you have these skills and how it can correlate to what they are looking for. The good news is that they need talent, and they need new, young, vibrant, energized talent. And I think there will always be that need. Okay. So those are the perspectives from a student, from a parent, from an employer. But let me tell you a little bit. Let's see, I'm gonna stop this part for now, stop the sharing, and I'll just show you myself. But I want to talk more about what's happening in the industry right now, what's happening with hiring trends, and really where are things right now, September 2024, and the kind of mood. I mean, look, if anyone reads the headlines, we know that it's challenging, but I want to give you some information specific to young adults, college students, and grads. And I'm going to start with the challenges. So let's get the bad news over with first, because then I think there's lots of opportunities. Even yesterday, if you get the New York Times, there was an op-ed written by a recent grad, a class of 2023. She went to UPenn, and she talked about the pressure of, even once you get to school, of getting in the right club, getting in the right business fraternity, getting in the right major, or who you do your internship, how it just like starts to scaffold, and how this feeling of like you're taught to feel kind of a little inferior, even though you're very, very bright. And I think we kind of get caught up in this vision of like, well, everyone has to do this, or and I really think, it's so hard. I feel like this demographic, it's so fragile, right? We're coming off the pandemic. People are questioning their abilities. And I think, you have to really kind of take a breath of not getting caught up. I mean, if you see it, it's an op-ed piece. I forget the name, but it was literally a maybe yesterday, September 24th, by this young woman, and it was really, I think, reflects a lot of how young adults feel right now. So, a couple things. The National Association of Colleges and Employers, also known as NACE, they had the prediction right. They saw that the class of 2024, that employers were hiring about 6% fewer candidates. And that has probably, been the case. We've seen the hiring cuts with big companies like Google, Amazon, Wayfair, UPS, IBM. I mean, they have pulled back. And the coveted white collar jobs that employers, or especially in consulting, we see that there's maybe not as many tech jobs or not as many consulting roles, or even if they have a job that have opportunities, they've even pushed the start dates back. So we see that those areas have pulled back. According to the federal data, shows that job openings have decreased by almost 20% in the past year, specific to young adults and recent grads, but hiring in professional and business services has dropped by about 12%. As I said a little earlier, there's competition. 2 years ago, there was a job for every person who was applying. Now there are two applicants for every job. And despite there is some strength in the labor market, it is becoming tougher for newcomers to break in. Hiring, right now, only about 13% of entry-level job seekers found work in the past 6 months, which is down a little bit from 2022, and that's according to Goldman Sachs. The Washington Post reported that, people aren't really leaving their jobs, and employers aren't necessarily laying off, just everyone's kind of staying put. But that doesn't leave a lot of room if you're trying to get your foot in the door. As we've seen, the US unemployment rate for 20 to 24-year-olds has increased to about 7.9%. And that's not, definitely a larger increase from previous years. We also see, according to the Fed Reserve, about 4 in 10 recent college grads are currently underemployed, meaning that they're working in a job that doesn't require a college degree. And that is also a challenge. We've also seen the average time to land a job. I get this all the time. People say, like, well, I need a job tomorrow. But according to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, the average time to land a job is actually 6 months. So it does take time to make that happen. And there still remains this big disconnect between employer expectations and college grads in terms of workplace readiness. What we've seen employers from a site is that they think that college graduates still may lack interpersonal skills, sometimes problem solving, leadership, or written and oral communication. So those are some of the challenges that we see. I know that's not like the best news, but I want to tell you that in spite of all of that, I really do see some opportunities. And I really think there's ways that we can have our young adults be successful in landing jobs. So let's talk about the positives. So in August, the economy added 142,000 new jobs, that which is better from July, which was 89,000. We've seen the top gains in employment for 2024 are in leisure and hospitality, healthcare, wellness, government jobs, construction, and retail. In essence, we've seen that government agencies are looking for 36% more entry-level software workers than a year earlier, and the construction sector is looking for 28% more. This is all based on a study done by Handshake. LinkedIn has seen a 21% increase in job postings advertising skills and responsibilities instead of qualifications, instead of GPA, which I actually think is really positive for students as well. Also, according to NACE, nearly 90% of employers are seeking evidence of a student's ability to solve problems, and nearly 80% are seeking candidates who have strong teamwork skills. These are skills that can be gained in the classroom or campus activities. That's a positive for young adults. We have seen about 75% of employers say that the overall job market is favorable towards the class of 2024 and 2025 graduates. We've also seen when early graduates and candidates use targeted networking, they yield favorable results in getting ahead of the recruiting process. And there's a big focus on AI. We know it, we hear about it. The International Monetary Fund estimates that about 60% of jobs in advanced economies are going to be impacted by AI. So understanding that is critical. And the last piece, which I think is valuable from Fast Company, is that they said the top 5 skills needed to get hired in 2024 are adaptability, having that open mind, data literacy and analytics, creativity, being innovative, problem solving, and sustainability literacy or understanding of environmental policies. So this is a lot of information, right? And sometimes they are even conflicting at times. The only thing that we can guarantee for 24 and going into 2025 is change. And with uncertainty, the only thing that all of us, any of us can control are our own actions. So how one prepares, how one presents themselves is critical in how to navigate this job journey, job search journey. And grads need to differentiate themselves from those with similar degrees and resumes. And how they do that is by defining their value, showing they can solve problems. And the main areas that we give advice on is you need to have an understanding of 2 things: to know what skills you have that you can bring to an employer, and who are you going to bring those skills to. So anytime someone says to you, tell me about yourself, you know exactly what you're going to say. And you're going to be applying to those companies that can really leverage your best talents. And being prepared is key. So, there's something I see a lot too. And I think the other piece that I need to reinforce is the ability to be persistent and to persevere. One email, one message, one response, one follow-up is probably, it's not going to be enough, especially in this competitive landscape. It's those who really continually follow up and show interest and persist will really set themselves apart. So I'm going to pause for a moment. I know I just gave you a lot of information, and I'll kind of, let me come over here to the questions, but I hope that just gives you a read on what's happening in the market right now. And I get it. I know it's challenging, but with all that being said, we have lots of clients and lots of grads who are getting hired. It's just being really strategic about that process. So, okay, I see Haley. Thanks for posting all those things. So let's jump over. Let's see. There's no questions in the Q&A. That's interesting. Okay, then I will share. I just want to make sure people are seeing it. Oh, here we go. I have some questions that are over here. All right. So if you have questions, right, either put it in the chat or the Q&A. And let me just make sure the Q&A is not disabled. And maybe that might be the reasons. Oh, all questions, all attendees. Okay, here we go. There we go. I see it now. So thanks, Jack. Thanks for asking that question. So how do you stand out on a resume/interview? So that's like kind of 2 questions. So let me start with the resume question. So how do you stand out with your resume? And, interestingly enough, the resume is just one piece of the puzzle, right? It's one piece of your brand. It's not the end all be all. And even before you start with your resume, or even before you start with your interview prep, I always want you to take a step back. And how we really encourage, students and grads to start is, let's figure out what are your top 3 core skills. So what do I mean by that? I want you to think about what are the top three skills that you are the most competent, most skilled at, and enjoy doing. And you have an example of how you have demonstrated that skill. And a skill is not, so I just want to be clear, a skill versus an attribute. A skill is something like analytical. I know how to research. I know how to sell. I know how to code. I know how to analyze. A skill is not hardworking or responsible or trustworthy. Those are attributes. Those are how you do your skill. But getting clear on your skill and then the story that you tell about it. So if you tell me that you're a great writer, I'd like to hear about maybe you wrote for the school newspaper twice a week or how it got certain, what is your writing process? How did you come up with ideas? How did you find topics? So I want to make sure through a very quick conversation that I understand that you have that skill set. And why this is important, why it comes to relating to the resume and even interviewing, is that once you have clarity on your skills and the story that you're going to tell about it, then the rest of the process gets easier. Then you're going to look for companies and jobs that need those skills. That's where you will have the most success. And obviously, if you can do that skill, that's how you're going to also be of value and benefit to a company. But coming back to your resume, I want to make sure that those skills are clearly represented. So if you told me you're a great writer, or maybe you're great at analytics and you know how to use Excel or analyzed a database, I want that to be coming across in the explanations of your experiences that you're putting on your resume. And I want there to be metrics. People, my general statement is people do not read and they do not listen. So you have to be prepared for that basically like 7-second scan of your resume. If someone looks over it, the easiest thing for them to find are numbers, percentages, volume, units, number of people, number of sales, number of people you helped recruit, whatever that might be, or even if you contributed to it, that's what people are looking for. But I also want to make sure that it's very clear how you demonstrated your skill inside your resume. And then when you finally make your way to an interview, the skills that you talk about is very much in alignment with what's on your resume. And it's the same thing that you talk about in your cover letter. It's, same thing in your elevator pitch. So you have this very consistent brand over and over where they're saying, yeah, I can see how this candidate is analytical because they gave me an example or two about it. They talk about it in their resume. They talked about it when they spoke about, how they look at information. It's like you're reinforcing to somebody over and over how you have that skill set. And it's not that the other thing I want to remind you is that there's very often a feeling of saying, well, I can do everything and I'll do it for anyone and I'll take any job. The problem with that is that as employers don't know what to do with you. They don't know where to go. You have to make it easy for them and be focused. If you're too broad or you just start applying to every kind of job, it's going to be very hard to tell your story in a concise way because you're kind of scattered. So, this idea, try to focus in as much as you can, not too focused, but focused enough where you have at least, 2 to 3 core industries or the types of jobs you're going for and start down that path before you decide I'm going to go in a different direction. So I hope that helps answer your question about resume and skills, but that's just kind of just a piece on that. That's a core piece of actually how we teach. So let me talk about, someone anonymously asked, can you touch on job search strategies if you approach graduation without a job secured, for example, non-salary, nonprofit? Absolutely. So by the way, lots of people, many are graduating without jobs for lots of different reasons, right? If you were the class of 24, 23, you may not have had the opportunity to have a normal college experience or internships the way you wanted. So we're seeing that it doesn't all happen, exactly the way you have it lined up. The priority is you have to graduate, you have to finish school. And I get this question all the time. Someone will come to me and they're carrying like 17 credits and they say, well, I got to look for a job. And I ask, well, when is that happening? Do you have any free time? Oh, no, I don't have any free time. So look, you have to prioritize. If that comes to be and say, look, I need to focus on school, and you come towards graduation and you don't have a job lined up, I'm going to suggest you do the same thing that I just mentioned about just in this process of figuring out your skills. But I will tell you, if you're in school and you still are not sure about job or graduation, please make sure you utilize all of the resources you have available to you while you were there. Because one of the biggest regrets that college grads tell me is that they didn't use resources that were available to them on campus. And yes, some schools will give you access to career fair or things after, but it's nothing like being there. And it's nothing like meeting a professor who your favorite professor is and going to office hours and asking them and saying, I'm thinking about this, or I really love the subject that you're teaching, and I'm thinking about a role there. Do you know anybody? Is there anyone else I should talk to? So, number one, optimize the professors. Make sure you go to every career event, every career fair. Even if you're not sure if you like the jobs, it's good practice. I'm telling you, it's good practice because when it counts and when it really matters and you're all stressed out about it, if you've already gone a couple times, you're not as worried and you'll be more relaxed and you'll have a sense. And by the way, employers love to see students who come back multiple years. That looks really good. Um, if you come to the point of graduation and you've used resources on campus and you still don't have a job, I definitely think I've seen a lot of post-grad internships, post-grad volunteering. I think you have to get an understanding through networking, and I'll talk a little bit about that, is identifying somebody who has the job that you want or that you're interested in. And very often we're big on like leverage the resources you have. Again, look at alumni. Now we have a resource. By the way, it's free for everybody. If you're on LinkedIn, a lot of people don't know this, but there is a tool called the LinkedIn Alumni Tool. And if you go to your very own profile and click on your college icon on your own page on LinkedIn and click on it, it will bring you to the university's LinkedIn page. Every university in the US just about has one. And there's a couple tabs. And on the tab I want you to click on is the alumni tab. And it brings you to this amazing filter. You can filter by the year someone graduated, what they studied, where they were employed, what kind of work they do, and look for people who are maybe graduated in the last 3 to 5, 7 years, who had the same major, who are doing a job that's of interest to you. And the best thing to do is to reach out to them directly on LinkedIn with a quick note saying, like you, I'm a fellow alum from this university, and I'm really interested in what you're doing at this company. I appreciate you connecting, or I'd like to speak with you further. LinkedIn doesn't give you a lot of space to write a lot, especially on the free version. You have about 200 characters. If you opt into premium, you get 300, but you can keep the message concise where you want to connect with as many people who are fellow alum as possible. And you know what? They tend to be the most friendly, the most sympathetic, because they were in the same exact position that you were. So I'm a big fan of using LinkedIn to connect with your network, or if your school has their own portal, connect with LinkedIn. With alumni rather. I cannot tell you the amount of people who say, I wish somebody would reach out to me, but no one ever has. So instead of being afraid, just write the note that goes along with the connection request of saying, this is who I am. I would just love to speak. Don't ask for the job in the note. That's a little too much. That's being a little too forward, right? That's like asking to get married on the first date. You got to just work it slowly. I'd like to learn more about what you do. And you get on the phone for a 10 or 15 minute networking conversation. We can talk more about that. I have a particular opinion about how to do that well. But I think that's the best way to kind of approach it. And I think absolutely if you want to take an internship or part-time job or a certification that you figured out that this is what you need in order to get into a role, but don't make the assumption. Talk to people who have the job you want so then you actually know how to best use your time. I think there's way too much guessing that goes on about, well, I think I need this or I think I need a graduate degree, but you really don't know. You're just guessing at it. So until you speak to a live person, ask somebody and figure that out. All right. So Jack, I hope that was helpful. And then anonymous. Okay. how common is it for companies to not hire full-time after the internship, but part-time with the potential for full-time based on the company's stability job market? Okay, that's a loaded question, but let me give you the internship to full-time answer because I do get this asked a lot. So first of all, I'm a big fan of internships. It does not have to be a big, fancy Fortune 100 company. Of course, you want to, depending on what you want. Every organization is different. Every type of interest requires different types of companies. I'm all about getting the best experience you can. And if it's working for a small company that lets you take on a lot of responsibility, amazing. Don't worry so much about the name of the company. It's more about the skills. However, when you're in that internship, and we talk a lot about this, we're always about, are you tracking your accomplishments? What are you observing? Are you initiating? Are you networking with people? But with all that being said, let's say you do the work really well and you thought you did a great job, and the company is just not in a position to offer you a full-time job. And we've seen that more and more. They're just not sure. They don't know of their budget. I think the way you look at it is like, look, I have this great experience. You want to make sure that they would be a reference for you. That's very important. So at least if they can't hire you, you could have someone, a potential other employer, go back to them as as a reference. And look, you have to get a sense for what you feel the opportunity is. Sometimes you might go part-time and you're hoping you're going to get full-time. You just kind of have to feel that out a little bit. But that's also a question you need to ask during the interview process. Is this something that they've done in the past? Is there anyone else that you can talk to who has gone in that route? I mean, you have to get a sense. If you just are guessing in your mind that if you take a part-time job or internship and that they're going to hire you, but they have no track record of doing that, that's you're just making that up. You don't know. So again, you need to ask these questions to figure that out. And if not, if say, hey, I can give you an internship, but I can't guarantee full-time work, you have to think about, am I gaining a skill set that will enhance what I need in order to get to the position that I want? So you kind of look at it that way. One other resource about internships, since we're talking about that, I happen to really love what this particular company does. I have no incentive. I have no relation. I just know the CEO. There's a company called Parker Dewey. It's PARKER-DEWEY. Maybe Haley, you can kind of put that in the chat. They offer micro internships where companies are specifically looking for college students to take on project-based work. So for example, let's just say Pepsi needed help with cleaning up a database and it's a 2-week project. So you go to the Parker Dewey site, you apply. Obviously, they're going to interview you like other people as well. But what's nice about this is these are like micro internships. So you could do a couple of these. You could maybe do it while you're at school or do it over winter break or do it like a couple of them over the summer together to get multiple experiences. And now you have multiple experiences on your resume. Even though that might have only been a 2 or 3 week project, it's a really nice way to get experience. So I really like what they do there as well. And then there's another company called The Forage, FORAGE, and they have simulations. So for example, let me think of some companies. There was a company, like, let's say, even for the Red Bulls, like soccer organization, they were looking for someone in sales. And what they do is they actually run you through simulations of what it's like to be in ticket sales. And there are like mini certifications. So if you finish one of their certifications, it kind of puts you in a higher contention for a job there because it shows that you spent the time doing one of their certifications. So check those out. There's lots of ways to get experience or even doing, certifications. There's a lot of things online, whether it's even, Google Analytics or digital marketing space. So check those out. I think there's lots of opportunities. And I think it's very common. If you feel like you need more time after you graduate, then there's options out there. Okay. Okay, so let me make sure someone's asking me about our process and our group sessions and what does that look like? Can we explain what that looks like? Sure, I'd be happy to. So just to help everyone understand, so we provide coaching to college students. We really support students anywhere from sophomore year, I'd say, really 19 to 29 is the max. And this is our sole focus. And we provide services 2 ways. Yeah, Haley just put a note that we start our next group coaching on October 10th. Group coaching and private coaching. Group coaching, something we've been doing for a number of years, our clients actually love it. And one of the reasons why I think it's so popular is because the job search can feel very isolating and it can feel very lonely. And when you come together in a group, we keep it at 4 to 5 students and grads together. There's a camaraderie that comes together when you're in the group coaching. And how it works is with 3 segments of how we do our coaching: core, execution, and ongoing support. Core is the first 6 weeks. You are meeting as a group at the same time each week with an advisor, and we are stepping you through this very structured process of how to navigate, from day one, just starting with understanding the value you have. What are your skill stories? How do you reach out to someone on LinkedIn? How do you network? How do you make sure you have the right resume, LinkedIn profile, cover letter, career fair, mock interview? Every single component that you need, we are teaching. That happens during the first 6 weeks. The second 6 weeks is the execution, where we are sending out weekly reminders and prompts and reinforcement of the materials. And in addition to that, you get 2 private 1-hour sessions over that 6 week period, and you have direct access to the advisor as well. And then on the back end is an additional 3 months of unlimited email access to your advisor, a total of 6 months of support. And what we found is that it really yields a great outcome. Our private coaching is also a similar method, but we're giving you private coaching every single week for both during the core and execution period, and it's a little bit more customized. So if you're interested in learning more about how we do that, please, I highly encourage you to schedule a consultation call. We put that link in the chat. We'd be happy to talk to you and make sure, we're all a fit for each other. But we've had tremendous success. So on average, our clients, and I do not guarantee employment because I can't guarantee what someone's going to say in an interview. But with all that being said, over 80% of our clients are landing the job that they desire within 3 to 5 months of working with us. So I'm really proud of that. And we have, if you're curious, we just hit over 100 5-star Google reviews on Google, so you can check that out. So I hope that helps. All right, let's make sure I'm answering everyone's questions here. Okay. Can we touch on, let's see what else we have. Let me come over to the chat because I saw some questions over there before. So let me make sure I'm getting everything. All right. Hi, Mark. So your daughter's been looking for a full-time job for over a year. She feels like she's getting ghosted all the time. Is this an issue? Yeah, this is a big, big problem we have right now. I actually have written a couple blogs about it. I don't know whether Haley posted or not. I was also interviewed by the Wall Street Journal about this. So one of the really big problems that we have going on right now with job postings are that many are scams. Many are not real. These are shell companies. They do not exist. Or if they do exist, they are, I'll say, luring early candidates or, early career candidates into that type of role, and then they kind of switch it on you when you show up, and they basically, like Verizon, want you to just go door to door knocking, asking if somebody wants Verizon Fios. It's not what they said. They said it was going to be an either digital marketing job. So, and the other problem is ghosting. And sometimes companies are required to put out a job ad, even though they already have the candidate. So that's a really unfair thing. So I want to just give you a couple pieces of insight on that. So, and I don't know if I touched on this earlier, this whole concept about quiet hiring. Companies are doing quiet hiring, which is they are either just looking internally for someone, or they are never putting their job on LinkedIn. It's never hitting the job boards. It's never hitting Indeed or Glassdoor. They are going out to their own personal network of people that they know and trust, and they're asking for direct referrals. Do you know anyone? Have you met anyone? Because as a manager, and I'll speak for myself as owning this business, I've run other companies, is that it's hard, right? If I put a job out and I have 100 or 1,000 people reply, like, I don't want to sort through that. I don't actually want to interview a lot of people. I want to go to somebody who I know and trust and give me the top couple people that and let's shortcut this, because people inherent default is you want the fast way to do it, or it might be a little bit lazy, but they also want to, it's very hard to sort through. How am I figuring out 1,000 applications? So I think just understanding that, just the networking piece of things is really, really important. And being ghosted sometimes is also not great. But I think there's another thing too. The ATS, that which stands for Automated Tracking System, which does a lot of that filtering. It's very, very hard for young adults, recent grads, to get through an ATS. Your job was to go to school. It's not normal that you would have every single correct keyword that they're looking for. And what's happening is that even the hiring manager might want to talk to them, but they're never seeing their resume because the computer has already blocked them. And this is where we get into the problem where so many grads, I mean, I did a TikTok live last week. If you want to follow me on TikTok, we're there. And someone joined on, was asking for help, and they said they applied to 5,000 jobs. That is not a good use of time, right? Something is wrong, right? The process is broken. Let's just say it is. The process is broken, and it's not about can I apply to more jobs or can I have all the right words? I just want to reinforce is that people hire people, not AI and not a tracking system. I understand that it's very uncomfortable for recent grads to reach out to someone and say, I'd like to speak with you, or let me tell you the value I can bring. But that's what we teach is that you have to have these conversations with real people to understand what it takes to get there or how you can prove that you're the right person to be in that role. I mean, we had this actually happen with one of our students that she was networking and she had already applied and she spoke with ultimately got to the hiring manager and she's like, I never saw your resume. I never got it. So it just goes to show that it was filtered out. So she technically would have been ghosted if she hadn't made a direct connection with the hiring manager. So, this is I don't say the game. The game is that you need to talk to real people who are in the jobs, who can direct you to what it takes to be there, who's hiring, and what are the right skills or how you present yourself to be successful in getting it. So I hope, Mark, that answers your question. I know it's not always the answer that everybody wants, but I just want to dispel some of the myth that it's not about volume. It's not about having more numbers or saying, well, I applied to 20 jobs every day, so this was a great day. I'm not going to say that that was a useful, productive day. It's more productive of the metric I really want to see candidates using is how many networking conversations live over the phone, over Zoom, in person have you had each week? That's the metric I'd like you to measure, not the metric of how many how many applications. And I'll tell you one other little trick. So for everyone who goes over to LinkedIn and LinkedIn shows you, says, 500 people applied to this job. That is not true. LinkedIn counts every view. So if you just click on the page and don't apply, that counts as an application. So it's also grossly inflating it. So it could say 500 people applied, where in reality only 80 applied. But it's discouraging you from applying because you're like, oh, what chances am I going to have? Because look how many people applied. It's another little, another little trick if you just want to know. It's not as difficult. Okay, so Mark, I hope that helped answer your questions. Hi, Amy. Says my daughter went to her third career fair today at Penn State College of Agricultural. So first of all, my older son, he graduated from Penn State. Good for her. Penn State had a really strong career fair presence, but I think that's a good example of showing up over and over again. And employers really like to see people that continue to show up. So maybe you were a freshman or a sophomore and they're like, yeah, come back next year or follow us or keep in touch. This is how you start to forge relationships, by using those campus resources and making use of it. Because I think so many times students will be like, it's not good, they don't have great jobs, but they're also making those decisions without going. And I think some of it's a little bit of fear because they don't know what to say. They don't know how to present themselves. They don't prep. By the way, we have a free guide of how to prep for the career fair. If it hasn't happened yet, feel free to grab it. There's an actual worksheet you can step through of how you prepare, how you look up the companies ahead of time, how to have your elevator pitch. We give that away because I want you to be as successful and prepared as possible and know what you're doing, because way too many students are not comfortable. And it's funny, Haley, who's our intern, who's been amazing posting all these, she's about to, she's working on a video right now about kind of like come follow her to the career fair and how she's preparing so other people feel comfortable to see what she's doing she's a college senior. Okay, awesome. Um, let's see. Oh, the skills, I think we had them on there. Okay, thanks for sharing those links. Okay, let's see. All right, this is awesome that everyone's been posting. So let me just come back to the Q&A to make sure, because I also have a whole bunch of other questions that were asked of me prior to our session. So I just want to make sure that I'm not missing any here. Okay, what do you say in an email to network? So great question. And I kind of touched on it a little bit. So it's combination. Do you have their email address or do you not? Is that right? So I'm assuming in many cases you don't have their email address. And there's two ways to get an email address of somebody that you want to speak with, but you don't have it. The first one is by asking them to connect on LinkedIn. But please do not use the default message of, I'd like to connect. Always customize it. Always add a note saying, I'm like you, I'm a fellow alum, or I'm really interested in, or I noticed that you posted this, or I saw that you're at this company and I'm really interested in learning more. I appreciate connecting. I mean, you can keep it just because once you connect, then you have their email address. The other way to find email addresses is there's a free platform. It's called hunter.io, hunter.io. And it helps you basically figure out the naming convention for how companies do emails. So like, for example, it could be first letter, first initial, last name could be jsmith@ibm.com. So once you start figuring out the naming convention, you can figure out somebody's email. So that's another way to figure out getting it directly. But when you do send an email, I think you have to understand I'm all about finding something that you have in common. Find something that would make that person want to respond to you. If it comes off as like, hi, I'm a recent grad and I really need a job and I want a job here, can you talk? Or it depends like what you're saying. If you're coming across too forward and asking for too much too early on, that is not going to make someone want to respond. What I find is find something on their profile in LinkedIn because everybody puts all their stuff there and say, I'm really interested in the role that you had, or like you, I also I went to Penn State, or like you, I'm interested in field hockey, whatever it is, or I saw this article about your company and I'd love your perspective on it. So just shows that do a little bit of due diligence. It's not that hard. It's either in the profile, you can Google the company, Google the person, but show you have something in common. And it's as simple as I'm reaching out as like you, we're both went to the same school. I'm a recent grad. I studied this. And then the next sentence is, I have strong skills in those same three skills we talked about early on. Could be analytics, research, and digital marketing. And most recently, I had an internship or volunteer or part-time job doing this that was related to that kind of role. And I would appreciate speaking with you further. I'm available Monday at 3 or Tuesday at 4. You're being very precise and specific. You're not saying I'm available anytime. Make it easy for them to reply Monday at 3 is great. So you're just, putting it out there. And I think the more that you show you have in common, the more that you show that you have clarity about what your own skills are and why you want to speak to them, the more likelihood that they're going to respond to that email, because you got to build some type of, connection to get people engaged. Okay. So I hope that helped. And yes, I just want to let everyone know if you are listening or you've been saying to this recording will be shared with everyone who attended, even those who registered and were not able to attend. I will make sure that they have that recording. So let me just cover a couple things. And let me just grab, I had one or two other things that came in on the form when people were finding out, this whole idea of, so if you're a parent and you want to try to help your kid and you're not sure what to do, I just want to offer you a couple of tips. And again, I speak from this is like, doesn't matter that I do this for a living. My kids don't always want to hear from me. And what I find is the most helpful is to try to ask questions and listen without judgment. So I'm not a therapist or anything, but sometimes what I find a lot of times our kids, they went to school, they studied a certain major, but maybe they don't want to get a job in that. And they're afraid to tell you that because they're like, wow, this was a huge investment that we took out loans or you helped make the investment. And they're afraid to tell you that. And I think sometimes that's where it happens. It does happen. It doesn't mean that their major was a waste. I want you to think of it as like, let's think about what you learned from this major or what experiences have you had. And I think having a really honest conversation of tell me what you're thinking, tell me what you're really would be excited about doing. Even if I said, forget your major for a minute, have you learned about anything? Have you seen anything? Is there anything that piques your interest? And I think just to get them talking about what they might be interested in or help facilitate the process of, you know what, you probably should talk to some people to learn more about what they do for a living. And maybe that'll start to even start with your family, even at family events, that cousin or uncle who you don't know what they do, have them be encourage them to be curious and to keep learning because the answer is not found in the depths of Instagram or TikTok or just scrolling the internet, right? It's by talking to people to understand what it is, what they do, because there's so many jobs and opportunities that they don't even know what's out there. I mean, even this weekend, I met somebody who does something for a living, and it was like, wow, I never even heard of that. I didn't even knew it was a thing. Um, so I think just encourage them to be curious, to talk to people and help them get clear on what their skills are. What are their top three skills? Because sometimes they can't see it. Maybe they don't see that they have great leadership ability, or maybe they don't realize that they're a great communicator. The more that you can point out the strengths and what where they really have something that they could potentially leverage for an employer, I think that'll also kind of get them talking with you more and then encouraging them to do the homework. You know, I will say one other thing too. The education doesn't end when you graduate. Part of the process of figuring out what to do with your life is also you got to get smart and you got to read trade journals. So if you want to be in accounting or if you want to be in fine art, you need to find there's many trade journals specific to industries. So like in finance, it's Barron's or Financial Times. And maybe for, environmental policy, there's different, make sure that they're reading like relevant industry trade journals. A lot of them are for free online to be smart. So not only do you know what's happening in the industry, which will help you for interviews, but also to know what are names of companies that might be coming up that you never heard of, or what company is not doing well, or what company is growing or acquiring. It gives you another sense of how to start picking, you know what, wow, I never thought about that, or let me look into that. So, the education never ends. And I think just encouraging reading, listening, podcasts, but things that are relevant to the area they want to get into, I think I think that can be, very helpful. All right. So I wanted to share this one last slide with you all. We jump to the end here. If you want to learn more, let me get myself off of this, about what we do and how we help young adults, if you scan, even to put your phone up to the screen, the QR code, it'll link you directly to our consultation. And we do a complimentary consultation. We could do parents alone, students alone, or we can have you talk together, whatever you're comfortable with. But we do speak to but both parties before engaging. And let's talk. Let's understand where you're at and how we potentially could help you and if it's the right fit. And if you're interested too, we are on every social media platform. I know Haley did a great job of posting it. We're on Facebook, Instagram, all under Next Grade Step. On TikTok, I'm under Jobs for Grads is the name, and then it says Next Grade Step. On LinkedIn, you can connect with Next Grade Step there. You can connect with me directly, Beth Hendler Grunt. I post a lot of early career opportunities that I repost because I follow a lot of people, internships opening, jobs. So if you're interested in learning more, I post a lot of, I think, good content. I do a lot of videos. I have a YouTube channel, Next Great Step. So I invite you to hopefully learn more about what we're doing. I really, really appreciate the engagement and the questions, and I was able to answer them for you. If you have additional questions, if there was something that we were not able to get to this evening, feel free. You can email us directly, info@nextgreatstep.com. So thank you again so much for joining us this evening. I try to do these, quarterly. I'm trying to do them a little bit more. Again, any questions, please reach out. Pleasure having all of you and wish everyone a great night. Thank you.